Hello there, beautiful people. I hope you're having an amazing Saturday and everything is going wonderful. Today, I wanted to talk to you. It's just been on my mind all day, so had to put it out there. Living from the inside, and I had posted something a few days ago, and this came up. Living from the outside in is really knowing who you are and understanding that you are 100% responsible for your own emotions, actions, and choices. And you're not responsible for anyone else's emotions, actions, or choices. It's really, really important to understand this. And so, what I mean by that is if someone does something. So I'll use a simple example. If you're at work and you have any employee, coworker, boss, and they come into work and they're in a really bad place. They're slamming things around, or they're just grouchy and short. They're hard to be around. If your irritation comes because you feel like they're messing up your day, they are causing you to have a bad day because of their bad day, you don't have any patience with them. You're mad at them. And so you don't have any compassion, or not nearly as much, because you may know a little bit about what's going on, but mostly you're just irritated because they are, in your mind, making you not have a good day. If you have a very clear understanding that no matter what's going on around you, your emotions are 100% yours, your choice. So you can choose to be aggravated at them, or you can choose to stay in your place. You can choose to say to yourself, and sometimes it takes some work if somebody's really in that space, but you understand that you get to choose to have a good day regardless of their day. They're not responsible for your day, and you're not responsible for theirs. Then, in that instance, if you know that you can still have a great day regardless of what's going on in their day, you have a much higher ability to have some compassion and empathy for whatever's going on in their life, because now you're not making them responsible for how your day's going or not going. And so that makes a big difference. And there's so many things around that, mostly, right? If I'm aggravated at them and I'm annoyed, and I'm not necessarily wrong to be annoyed, but I'm allowing it to mess up my day. I'm choosing to let their bad day, going on from whatever has happened to them before, or at home, or with their boss, to make my day bad. I'm choosing that. That is a choice. And then if I take it further and everybody else is annoyed, I'm going along with the crew and we go to the break room or the water cooler, or somebody's office, and then we're all talking about they did this and they did that, and we're in that griping session. So in that space, none of us is in a space to draw in good things for ourselves, to have good interactions, to be productive, right, to get our stuff done. And we're not doing anything to affect a solution or any sort of help or compassion or empathy for the other person. And that's because we're choosing to allow someone else to affect how our day is going. And that doesn't mean that you want to work in a space. I'll sign up to be right next door, my desk right next to the person who's grouchy every day and yelling to other people on the phone because I can handle it. That's really an extreme, but not like, you're not responsible for their response, but you are responsible for yours. But you, in your clearness and your compassion, first of all, you're able to be clear about boundaries. If they're, short with you, you may choose to say, when you're in a better place, we can have this conversation and go do something else. You find a way to have clear boundaries that keep you in line, because no one can stay forever like joyful if somebody's in their face yelling, right? So we have to, but we're clear that we have choices that we can make. We understand that the point of power is within us to make choices that allow us to have a good day regardless of what's going on around us. And so we can keep our brain going to, how can I handle this? What would, what's going on with him? Wonder how, sometimes a little bit of compassion, looking for, if someone does that on a consistent basis, there may be something going on that just a kind word allows them to relax a little and be less stressed, as opposed to everybody griping while they're struggling with something they don't know how to tell you about. If you look for the best that's in them and you focus on that, you will start to attract that part of them to you. And so you won't change them as a person, but you'll change how you interact with them. And it's because you are able to be compassionate, because you understand that you have choices to make to stay in a good emotional place for yourself. And none of us is perfect, so we're going to have off days, or we're going to find ourselves aggravated and saying something. But the quicker you can recognize it, the quicker you can move to a better space and keep that point of power within. And what I mean by that is, if I'm angry at someone for the way they're behaving or something they've said, I've given away my point of power, my choice to have a good day. And I'm allowing them to dictate how my day is going, whether that's sad, whether that's angry, any of those things. And for the most part, joy comes from within. So yes, things can come and happen that make us feel joyful, but that maintenance of it is really understanding that your emotions are your choice and you get to choose that. And sometimes people say, well, if you put yourself first, you're going to be selfish or you're going to be egotistical. Well, the clear thing is making sure you're clear about who you are, and you own that all the time about your own choices and actions. And I'll give you an example of that. An example of me making a mistake, right? So, not too long ago, I was working, and this one technician who's super sweet, great technician, and she asked me what felt like to me was the same question, a couple of times. And then I was confused about, because I thought I'd answered it clearly. Is that an excuse? Absolutely not. But she asked again, and I was in the middle of something else, and my answer back, I didn't have a good tone of voice. But I recognized that, and because I am 100% responsible for my actions, who I am, I apologized. I said, I'm sorry. I don't know why my tone of voice came out like that. And I'm sorry, because that was not appropriate. And she said, I appreciate that. And I accept your apology. And we have a great working relationship. And the point of that, and the point of even telling the story is, you still have to own your actions without needing somebody else to, and there are going to be times when you miss something you did and somebody says it. When you are within yourself and not taking things personally, you're able to evaluate, okay, maybe that's true. If somebody said something that you missed, if you missed that your tone of voice wasn't good and they said that, or you're thinking, my tone of voice, there was nothing there. You may really find that person is actually sensitive, and then you take that as a tool. I need to remember that when I'm having conversations with that person. You don't take it personally. You're not mad at them, because everybody's doing the best they can with the tools and knowledge they have at the time. And the point of understanding that is, they're not trying to pick on you. They don't know any different. This is how they are. This is how they feel. This is the level of coping skills they have. And when you can keep your head in the game and not take it personally, or realize that you're taking it personally, and I do this, and then I have to sit back and say, why am I taking that personally? What could be going on that I don't realize that has nothing to do with me? Because 99.9% of the time, it doesn't. People's actions and the way they behave is a reflection of their own experiences, their own knowledge and tools that they've learned through the years, the things that have happened to them. And everybody's is unique. And so, so if I had, here's the thing, if I didn't call it out and apologize, and she, being a soft-spoken, sweet person, didn't say anything, I'm more likely to do it again at some point, because once when I've apologized, I've also called myself out on it, like made myself even more aware, more conscious of thinking that through and not responding like that. And so I'm less likely to do it in the future because I did call myself out on it. If I didn't say anything and then we're going along and chatting and things seem okay, and I just go, well, she's fine, and well, there I'm eroding, right, at her trust, at her comfort level with me, and it's more likely to happen again. And at some point, by the time she may say something, there's a considerable amount of erosion that's happened. But if I truly care about who I am, my integrity, my values, then I'm going to call myself out. And when something like that happens, and I'm going to listen and truly listen and decide, if somebody calls me on something, did I do that? But the point of taking a personal out of it is because, and oh my gosh, I lived in this space for so long, so I can tell it to you inside out, backwards and forwards. If I take it personally, then I can't clearly evaluate the information. And I am more likely to then, you know, be mad at them, right? I feel bad about myself, then I'm mad at them because they made me feel bad. Like the clearness that comes with being clean inside and not taking things personally and recognizing when you do. So don't respond at that moment. No, you've got some work to do to get the personal out of it and then evaluate what's really going on. And even recently, I had something happen and it felt personal, but I really didn't know the whole story. And so I had to really think about that. And so I didn't have a good way, like I tried to find out the whole story and I didn't get a response that would give it to me. So I decided to act as if it wasn't personal, as if it was just the way things worked out, no big deal, and take the high road and do the best, kindest things that I could do in that instance. And do you know what? I ended up with a situation that worked out beautifully. And the rest of the story did come out that I didn't have access to before. But what if I had taken it personally and not done that? Something that could be really awesome would have ended without me having any idea really what happened, and no way to actually get something useful like information about, and that's so it's important to find a way to take the personal out of it, one way or another. Even if you like, well, I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to act as if it's not personal, and I'm going to do the highest level, the highest quality response, whatever, that I can think of to do in this situation. And because again, that keeps you in your integrity, right? Even when you're not sure. And of course, the more you do that, the more you start realizing that, really there's very little. There are sometimes people that they're aiming at you personally, but it's really not personal because it's coming from what their viewpoint is. Like if you know that you're getting up every day and doing the very best you can every day, understanding that my best today, might not be as good as my best last week when I wasn't as busy, or when I'd had really good night's sleep for several days, or, having that compassion for myself as well as others, but knowing that I always get up with the idea to be the best person that I can possibly be. And if I make a mistake, I do my best to call myself on it, or listen if somebody has something to say and figure out, where it really falls. If I'm in that space, then I'm not susceptible to someone manipulating me, someone bullying me, right? They can say bullying words, but if I'm very clear about who I am and I operate it from the highest level of integrity I know how to operate from in the best ways possible, and I know that if something came across that way, it was never intentional, then I'm not susceptible to being manipulated by someone saying mean things. And their feelings can be valid in the sense that they don't understand where I'm coming from, and they see it from the only place they can see it from, which is a very different perception than mine. And if I can have compassion for that and not judge them for that, and just do my best to care about people in the best way possible by knowing that they're all doing the best they can with the tools and knowledge they have, even if what they have is terrible. It doesn't mean I have to stand in the line of fire every day, right? But when I have a client who's really difficult or challenging, if I understand they're doing the best they can with the tools and knowledge they have, and it's not personal, I mean, usually in that situation, there's more than one example of them having been difficult to have a conversation with for more than one person. And in that situation, sometimes it's just emotional in the moment, but usually you can tell that because someone in that situation is more likely to apologize at some point. But if it's more of they just really don't have good coping skills, then it's about, can I figure out a way to help them and their pet and keep my integrity and but I can stay in the problem solving mode. I can stay in the solution mode because regardless of what they're, and I can still call them out if their behavior is out of line without being disrespectful, without yelling, if they're demanding that I do something that isn't the right thing for me to do, I can say, no, I'm sorry, that's not available. This is what can happen if you're willing to, address it in this manner or be open to this conversation. If they're yelling, we can't have a discussion and problem solve what's going on when you're yelling. Are you in a place where you can take some deep breaths, calm yourself down, and we can have a conversation? Or do we need to hang up the phone and have this conversation at a different time? There's ways that you can do it that most people will respond to that, because you're not giving in to the behavior, but you're not yelling back. Because you're not taking it personal, right? And so that's allowing you to think. When we take it personal, we almost go in fight or flight, and our actual brain shuts down. Our stress level goes up, our heart rate goes up, and our cortex, the thinking part of our brain, shuts down, and we are not capable of a logical response at that point. And that's what happens. That's what's happening to the other person. And you can do it to yourself, not on purpose, but if your negative voice in your head is really bad, you can actually create that for yourself, where you shut down your own cortex and you can't figure out a solution because you're so mad at yourself. And so, but when you stay in your point of power, when you recognize that, and sometimes, you lose it. You didn't have enough sleep. You've got a lot of stuff going on around you, and you're overloaded. Like your circuitry is overloaded. But if you get to the point where you understand that you're 100% responsible, that you can't think when you're in that era and the solution isn't going to come, you can start to have a sense of humor about it. Almost be like outside of yourself going, well, how's that going for you? How long are you going to go in this mode before you kind of, and so you talk to yourself, don't be mean, because that's not going to help. What's wrong with me? Be curious. Gee, why did that happen? And that's the same way you're looking at it when you're looking at someone else in that space. You don't necessarily aren't going to be able to figure out the why because you don't know them, but you can say, they don't seem to have a good way to handle the communication. If it's not clear, if they're feeling stressed, they immediately go into attack mode. So I know that when I speak to this person, I need to make sure I have all my ducks in a row and everything clear. And as much as possible, because chaos for them, confusion sets them off. Their brain doesn't cope well with that from whatever is in their past. And so you're not responsible for anybody else's emotions either. And that's a valid point to come to, because people will say, well, you made me mad, or, so I'm not responsible for my coworkers' behavior, even if, because there's, first of all, usually in a work, well, I won't say never, but most of the time people are bringing in they may be triggered by one thing you said because they're already on edge from a bunch of other things, right? And even if I unintentionally said something that made them mad, they still chose to be mad. Just like if they're slamming around the office and I am angry at them, I'm choosing to be angry rather than choosing that my point of power is within me and I don't have to be angry. And I can realize that I can have a great day whether they do or not, which allows me to then be more compassionate. Still have my boundaries, which are easier when you're clear, right? And so it's our boundaries get all messed up when we get tangled up in everybody else. If we're trying to convince somebody of something, so many times we think in order to get to do what we want to do, we have to convince this person that it's okay, or multiple people. And that's because early on and through society, we're taught that a lot. We're taught to, that we're supposed to make others happy or we're supposed to do certain things. Parents don't mean that. And it's changing little by little, but there's still a lot of it. There's a lot of it in schools. There's a lot of it in, sometimes kids are meant they end up feeling bad because maybe they're hyper and they don't flow, they don't fit in the flow with everybody sitting in their desk. They need to learn a different way. And then, the things that happen and the things that are said make them feel bad about themselves, right? And then they're trying to please other people and be who they're not, and they feel terrible. And these are the kinds of things that have, and it happens whether you have any sort of just who we are. A lot of times we don't fit in some particular box because we're all created differently, magically, and we're all have unique qualities that are different in all different ways, and none of us is really supposed to fit in a box. And so connecting and learning who you are and letting go of worrying about what other people think of who you are, that does not mean you're disrespectful. Just like when I was rude unintentionally, I still called myself on it. I'm not saying you get to be ugly, mean, and hateful, but if you're in your point of power, you would never want to do that. You have integrity, you have compassion and care, and you're full of love, because it's so much easier to be in that spot when you don't think other people get to determine who you are, and then you're fighting to try to be who you are. And by the time you fight with all these different people trying to convince them all these different things, you don't even know who you are anymore. And that's the point of landing in your own space and trusting in who you are and learning how to do that. And that is 100% what your point of power is, and what 100% responsibility for yourself is, and learning to live an extraordinary life. And I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your weekend, and I hope I gave you some things to think about and toss around and play with, because you can start to live a life that's a whole lot easier as you start to make sense of this and put pieces in place. So happy Saturday. Have a great rest of your day, and live an extraordinary life, because you are worth it and the world is worth you living your extraordinary life. See you soon.